Dr. Giampaolo has come out the other side and is now a postdoc researcher in the physics department. Is that right?
Yep.
So Giampaolo was also a finalist and the runner-up at the 3-minute thesis in 2018. He then went on to compete also at Falling Walls 2019.
Yep.
He won it. He beat out people from Harvard to win it, and then went on to compete at the International Falling Walls competition in Berlin, also in 2019 in November. He's also a TEDx speaker. He spoke at TEDx Catania.
Yep, that's right.
And he's published so many things in so many publications that I've lost track now. Yeah, so congratulations on all that amazingness.
Thank you.
Just to note that as well as doing all this, he wrote this thesis which got him minor corrections, and they were so minor that he did these corrections in like over the weekend.
How'd you know that?
You told me.
Oh, yeah.
Like a week after. Yeah. So because you have met with so much success across so many different platforms, I wondered if you could please share some advice about how you prepare content for and present across all these very different platforms and also across different languages. Sorry, I wanted to also say if you could just give us a little bit of an introduction as to what you research and where you are now and what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a postdoc now. I'm almost 1 year into my postdoc and in physics. And what I do, basically, I study single bacteria. So the research is kind of in between biology and physics, really. So we try to use physics to study bacteria, and in particular, single bacteria, that is one by one. The main reason for doing this is because we want to find out how antibiotics affect bacteria in as little time as possible. And this is important because this can then inform how antibiotics are prescribed. And that is crucial in order to use them wisely and to prevent the spread of antibiotic resistance. That, as we know, antibiotics, we're running out of antibiotics, basically. So we need to use the ones we have very wisely. And for that, we need better diagnostic. And that's what I'm basically doing. So as for the different platforms, yes, I basically presented my work in very different platforms, very different types of audiences, different available time I had for my presentation. And I tried to think about this and what would be, say, the common factors in all of this, in how to prepare for such different platforms. And basically some common points I could find is, as they've already kind of been mentioned by previous speakers, is first of all, the audience you're talking to. That's really important because I've also presented at like research conferences in which, of course, the content and the tone and the terminology you can use is very different from what you might be using in a 3MT competition or in the Falling Walls or in a TEDx. So you need to kind of tune your language and terminology to different levels, basically. Another important factor here is how much time you have. 3-minute thesis, you have 3 minutes, you have to really condensate down to really narrow down what you want to talk about. In a TEDx, for example, you have 18 minutes, so you can expand a little bit more. So that's really important to consider. And also, this might seem trivial, but depend on what you have available. Do you have slides? Can you use videos? Can you use props? Can you use animations? For example, in Falling Walls, we could have props on the stage, and that was easy for me to show what my device looks like, to have a visual impact, but you can't in 3MT. So you only rely on a static slide, so you need to work around your order of presentation, the concept you're focusing on, depending on what you have behind you, not to distract people, for example. But I mean, across all the different platforms, what I found useful for myself is to have a core argument. So you really nail down what you're going to talk about, and then you kind of build around it. And then eventually you want to end up with what Will said, kind of this kind of funnel structure. But personally, I prefer to start from the key point. So what's the real message I'm trying to get across? So what a kind of exercise I was told during my training was just imagine you have to tweet your entire research in 140 characters. You need to choose each character very carefully, because you only have 140, right? So that really helps to nail down what your research is about, and then you try and expand for, you know, as much as you can, depending if you have 3 minutes or if you have 18 minutes. But then you start from really that core concept. Then what's really important for public engagement, I think, is to make it simple. And this has already been mentioned, so avoid jargon. But apart from jargon, also very difficult concepts which apply to my case, being, you know, doing like some physics and kind of biology as well. You really need to kind of, I would say, dump it down. And that is not like, you know, it's not patronizing. You're not patronizing your audience. You really need to do that if you really want the audience to be with you and to get your message across. So what I did, and what I suggest people do, is kind of be ready to kind of sacrifice accuracy and precision over clarity. You don't need, like as Will said, it's kind of a microwave. Yes, we know very well it's not at all like a microwave, but be ready to sacrifice that to get the message across. You're not talking to a fellow scientist, so that's allowed. That's totally allowed. And then what else? Well, things have kind of been mentioned. I would also say, like, make people care. So have an hook for people. So explain why what you're doing is important, kind of giving that general picture that many people have already mentioned. And in this aspect, what really helped me was that I was keeping asking myself, so what? And this is what we've been told during our training as well. So every sentence you say, everything you say has to matter. So every sentence must, you know, kind of respond to that question. So what? Why is this important? Why am I putting this sentence right here? Does it really fit? Does it really help me getting my message across? And that is really something that really helped me. And yeah, I think, yeah, I'll go through my notes as well, but I think that's pretty much, well, yeah, I had another point about, well, being concise and direct. So there's no need to like embellish concepts or embellish sentences, just go straight to the point. And I think that's a characteristic of scientific thinking and speaking, I would say. Just very simple sentences, concise, just get your message across. I would say that many short sentences is better than having a single very long intricate sentence. And I think that applies to every platform or every thing you presenting on. And one, just very shortly about the different languages you mentioned. I don't think to how many people that applies, but being bilingual in my case and having to present my TEDx in Italian, because it was in Italy. Again, I don't know to how many people this applies, but it was very difficult. It was very difficult. I had to translate everything in my mind. When I say translate, I mean translate from English to Italian, not the other way around, because I'm so used to speaking about these things in English that it was very difficult for me to go back to both the technical terms and the actual sentence construction. That was quite challenging. But again, just this like as a fun fact, I don't know how many people will benefit from this, but that was difficult. Yeah, I think that's it for me for now.
You have very masterfully managed to answer both my questions at once. So I have another question to throw into you. So I remember in your 3MT presentation, and by the way, for all participants, everyone who's at York, and even for Shruti, the 3MT videos of our 3MT presentations are available on the university website, so you can look them up, including our slides. So I remember you injected humor into your slides. Like you had these little illustrations of bacteria
the muscle bacteria. Yes, the bacteria.
Yeah. So I mean, you did that really well, but I think it can be tricky using humor.
Yeah.
And I wondered how you did that. Like and not just humor, but I think you were really good at injecting your own personality into your presentations.
Mm-hmm.
how can people do that comfortably? It can end up being really quite awkward.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so what I would say about that is just be yourself. I mean, if you're that type of, of a funny person that just throws out some jokes sometimes, then you might be feel comfortable doing that, but don't force it. I mean, the most important thing on stage is just be yourself. If you are a serious person, if you are very focused and serious, just be that way. You can still get your message across, get people's attention, even if you don't put jokes in. I mean, in my case, yes, it was kind of a bet at the beginning. I wasn't sure if people were going to laugh. It kind of did, so it kind of worked out. But so yeah, it was a bit of a risk. But I would say don't take risks if, as you said, I agree. It might, turn out to be awkward, and you don't really want that. And
yeah,
just be
it's not
yourself.
quite authentic to you.
Yeah, exactly. Just yeah, that would be my take on this. Yes.
I also wanted to just say something about languages. So I only speak English myself, but I went to a session recently where the trainers encouraged people, for those of you who are bilingual or who have access to media in other languages, public engagement and communication trainers often advise that, don't feel that public engagement activity only has to be in English or only with sort of UK or US based media, that getting your work out there can be really effective if you approach local medias as well. So that this is local even within the UK, but also within your home countries. If you're fortunate enough to be bilingual, that is another really good avenue to get your work out. So you don't have to start like at falling walls. It could be on a local radio station, or local newspapers or magazines as well. Those are definitely really valid and effective ways of getting your research out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. Kind of on that note of magazines, given that you mentioned them, yes, I would like that. Yeah, I would like to say that there are a lot of opportunities out there. You briefly mentioned the conversations earlier, and that's really a platform that is always keen on hearing from people. So you can submit a proposal and just try to get your work out there for lay audiences, and that's really a good opportunity to do that. There are also a lot of magazines. I can think of something for physics or for science that are really keen on having people's contribution, and that's really something that's it's worth looking for and to get your work out there. I definitely agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, and the conversation, they do want content, and this is really, we're primed, we're at the best place to write for them. You have to be an academic or affiliated with a higher education institution to write for them. And it's a really good way of getting out and practicing communicating with broad audiences. And it doesn't just stay in the conversation. I think a lot of mainstream publications, national and international, pick up stories from the conversation and republish it on their websites as well. So yeah, there's real potential for getting your work out.
In my case, I can bring my own experience. When I published for the conversation, then the piece was picked up by The Eye, the national newspaper, and then it was on The Eye just a few days later. So it's a good platform. It's a very good platform.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know right now, but I know that the university sometimes organizes training with conversation editors. So look out for that. That's definitely worth checking out. Maybe not right now, but at some point in the future. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Thanks, Giampaolo.
Thank you.
Thanks.